In the absence of the invocation of the Emergencies Act, the OPS would have been able to clear the protests.
In the absence of the invocation of the Emergencies Act, the OPS, the OPP, the RCMP, as part of a unified command, were going to clear the protests.
Sir, you mentioned violence that took place in the street. Can you point me to one exact occurrence that isn't based on hearsay? Was it the RCMP horses trampling protesters? Was it officers pepper spraying a journalist, or was it another one shooting a journalist? Which one exactly? Hey everyone, William Diaz here with Rebel News once again. The Library and Archive building here in Ottawa, a place I will be stuck at for the next few weeks thanks to Justin Trudeau and his invocation of the Emergencies Act. The Public Order Emergency Inquiry is taking place because Justin Trudeau invoked a never-used-before anti-terrorism law on peaceful protesters, part of the Freedom Convoy, back in February. The protesters traveled from all across the country to protest COVID-19 mandates. And the inquiry is a fail-safe built into the law to prevent authoritarianism from misusing it against regime's critiques. Now, on October 24th was the 8th day of the Emergencies Act Inquiry, and one man took the entire day to himself to testify. That was Steve Bell, the former interim Ottawa police chief during the Freedom Convoy. Bell has made a name for himself after former chief Slowly was pushed out of the force at the beginning of the convoy. Bell has a Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology and political science from Carleton University, and he has served in the force for 21 years. Here's what his testimony looked like.
Somebody wrote, "I lay awake tonight as I read Twitter posts from the extreme right vowing attacks on Rideau Hall this weekend. Some are calling for action akin to the happenings in Washington on Capitol Hill. I understand the right to peaceful protest, but I'm writing as a very concerned citizen as we're not hearing any reassurances from the city or policing regarding the safety of residents surrounding these vulnerable and targeted spots."
There was national security representatives, including CSIS and the RCMP, in our joint intelligence group. So again, this was information that was taken in, assessed, evaluated, put towards our threat assessment, and ultimately this didn't bear out to be accurate. There was no threats made against Rideau Hall.
One of the things I want to focus on is the cross-examination of Bell by one of the Freedom Convoy's lawyers, Brendan Miller. Very interesting, pretty damning, and sort of ridiculous. Take a look.
So is it fair to say that when you use the phrase violence, you're not actually describing any form of physical assaults, are you? Well, physical assaults do contribute to what I'm describing. I was specifically describing the violence that our community felt as a result of the culmination of actions that the occupiers engaged in. So the violence that they felt, not actual violence, is that what you're saying?
That is correct. Not the criminal code definition of violence, but the violence that they felt by having incessant horns blared.
Right. And
by having trucks run 24/7 a day.
Right.
By having people intimidate them and follow them, and by having people rip masks off their head, by feeling sheltered in their homes.
Well, thank you. I understand what you mean. But you're not talking about violence under Section 2 of the CSIS Act, are you?
No, I'm not. As violence inflicted on them and towards them.
And so that's the honking, right? Is one of them.
Honking would be one of them.
The, I believe the exhaust coming from trucks.
But I think it's important you put it in context. It's the honking of large air horns of approximately 300 to 400 to 500 trucks simultaneously for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's not just tooting a little horn. It's the incessant noise pollution that is being inflicted on the people that we were referring to.
Sir, you mentioned violence that took place in the street. Can you point me to one exact occurrence that isn't based on hearsay? Was it the RCMP horses trampling protesters? Was it officers pepper spraying a journalist, or was it another one shooting a journalist? Which one exactly? Can you tell me one? Steve Bell is the same man who said back in February that anyone who donated to the Freedom Convoy would be tracked down. So if you donated $25 to the convoy, you'd be tracked down by the police, he said himself.
If the protesters at this point, retreat and go home, are they going to be getting sort of repercussions down the road? Or are you going to be sort of actively pursuing the people that you've been sort of documenting and filming who are still out there protesting? What are your plans after this, after the protest is over?
Thank you. It's a great question. And the simple answer is yes. If you are involved in this protest, we will actively look to identify you and follow up with financial sanctions and criminal charges. Absolutely. This investigation will go on for months to come. It has many, many different streams, both from a federal financial level, from a provincial licensing level, from a criminal code level, from a municipal breach of court order, breach of court injunction level. It will be a complicated and time-consuming investigation that will go on for a period of time. You have my commitment that that investigation will continue, and we will hold people accountable for taking our streets over.
That same day, we learned that the commission would summon Doug Ford to testify during the inquiry. We also learned that Doug Ford was first asked to testify on September 19, yet he refused. And this is interesting since Ford said that he was never asked to testify. Another lie from Ford, it seems. Listen to what he originally said.
How come, Premier Ford, you're not testifying at this inquiry? Were you asked? Did you decline?
I have not been asked. Again, I want to repeat what I said earlier. We have top officials from the OPP that were running the operation with conjunction with municipal police agencies and the RCMP. You know, our police did an incredible job. They were very peaceful, they moved forward, and I am so proud to stand here and back our police right across this country and right across this province. I'll always support our police. They're professional, they're polite, and they ended up getting the job done.
Rebel News also invited convoy organizer and former RCMP sniper Danny Bilford to one of our nightly live stream at 6 p.m. to help us digest the day's testimony.
Right, like we keep hearing all of these allegations of attacks on citizens and ripping masks off and all of these horrible behaviors from the convoy protesters. That certainly was not my experience. I didn't see it, and I was doing perimeter walks around the city of Ottawa late at night, early morning, all the time. And a lot of the people that were helping me in the volunteer side of things, same thing. We weren't seeing that, we weren't experiencing that. And every time I hear those allegations made, I think to myself, okay, well, where's the evidence of that? Because anyone can make a claim, but if you don't back it up with evidence, then it's just your word against ours, right? And then in my experience as a police investigator, you almost always have to have some type of corroborating evidence to go with the allegation that's made. And so far, I've seen a complete lack of evidence to support those claims.
Bulford is not currently listed on the preliminary witness list from the Commission. However, this might change. The list is an evolving document, as we saw with the recent edition of Ford. To stay informed with everything that is going on here in Ottawa and to support our independent journalism, you can head over to truckercommission.com. Thank you for watching. This was William Diaz here with Rebel News. Once again, if you want to stay tuned with everything that is happening here in Ottawa, and if you, most importantly, want to support our independent journalism here from the nation's capital, underground journalism, please head on to truckercommission.com.